Hello everyone and welcome. Today's video is for Marek, because he was asking me how we can do something like this and turn this into something like this. A little bit of day and night dark mode post-processing. The previous was a 1 minute short, how I edit this very fast, and now this is everything in depth with some explanation on how I did the previous one, and also we will go with another example making something like this into a dark night landscape. So let's hit it off.
Bokeh Photos.
This is our original image. This is from Helsinki. I was on a business trip, and the bottom line is it's pretty easy to do because we have already the all requirements to make it happen. Meaning we have the lights, as you can see here. We have the highlights in the sky. We can of course paint this dark. A little bit of highlights here, but we can just simply add contrast and it will work. So let's try and start. First, copy the background layer as always, and just add a contrast. Brightness and contrast. And let's just add a contrast to this. And this is what we can achieve. And this already looks very nice in my humble opinion. But it's only my opinion. And we have brightness, doesn't work. And the highlights in the sky should be a little bit darker. But we can just do it with one slider in the end. Okay, so we have this. So what else we can do? I would like to lower down the light here in the background. So let's go and try to add highlights and shadows. But let's use this version with the range. So we can set the range for the shadows and the highlights. And let's see the highlights. How does it go? Highlights range, let's set to max. And this is our highlights. Even the lights on the buildings. So this is very easy. And if we lower down the range, there's a lot less being used for that slider. So let's try and just simply... I'm happy kinda with this. Although I would add a paintbrush across the buildings and the lights. So we lowered down the highlights, and as you can see, the one issue with that is we don't have access to that filter here. It's already being set into that image, so we won't be able to get back to it and edit later on, but it doesn't matter for now. Okay, let's add another brightness and contrast layer, and let's focus on the buildings, when the buildings are okay. Let's say this is the brightness I would like for those buildings to have, and maybe a little bit of contrast to add the color also. So now we can click Ctrl I, invert the layer, click B for brush, for regular brush, and just set the color for white. And as you can see under the brush, I can already see a very small change. So we can edit this and just paint in the colors. Let's set the hardness for 1, flow for 5%, so it will be faster. And as you can see, it's very subtle, but we are adding brightness to that parts where we have the most amount of light in the streets. We of course change the size of the brush and just paint in the streets, the car lights, etc. Sorry for that. And add a little bit of reflection here. We can add a little bit of pink here to make this brighter, or maybe not really. And I would also like to paint a bit of here to underline this chapel, just a little bit. As you can see, those harsh shadows are from the lights that are illuminating the whole building, so it won't be that easy to do, but just a little bit to show off that this is a very important thing and looks awesome in the night sky. This we also, remember, never try to get a halo. This is usually done by first masking and then going really deep down and changing this manually, because then the effect is the best. But I think we will get away with something like that. And I'm painting this just by hand, manually. It's like, if I like this, if this looks okay for me, that's the bottom line. I don't do anything else with that. Okay, it looks a little bit better. Maybe it shouldn't be that hard. You can of course always change the paint to black and just paint this back to darkness. No worries there. Remove a little bit of here. And there you have it. This is like the base. I would say this is okay, but I would add a little bit of darkness in a couple of places. So let's go with vignette, as always. I like to do this. Exposure -1, let's say, and the shape, yes, something like this. Scale, let's scale it to the max, so we will have a closing eye effect. Hardness, of course, the lower the hardness, the better. And there you have it. I would say I'm pretty happy with that. And there is still a little bit too much of a highlights here in my opinion, so let's try and change this. Shadows and highlights, and highlights. And this is a little bit of a problem because it's not a raw file, not anymore. And we have a I have a little bit of problem changing those highlights. But let's try our best and just simply change this a little bit. Okay. And now we can invert the layer and just paint in those dark highlights into our image. So we have the brush, color is set to black, so now we can just simply paint over this and everything should be okay. As you can see, it does require a couple of tries at least to have it really on the spot where you would like it to have. But still there is the sun, so we can live with this. This white thing here, we won't be able to do much about that. We can eventually remove this from the landscape, but it's there, so I don't really think that we should. But I would keep it as it is. Okay, what else we can do? I would add, for example, an orange tint with the lens filter. I already have my favorite orange color dialed in, which is 35-146. And there you have it. Nothing more. I wouldn't add anything. Eventually, maybe let's try add some saturation to that. Vibrance and saturation. Vibrance is adding color only in the highlights. Mostly. And saturation is adding overall. Like, is this too much? This is of course a question to you, because I would add as it is right now. It's okay for me. And pretty much that's it, I would say. We don't have to do much more. We can add a little bit of more darkness into the sky. We can mask the cathedral and make it brighter or darker, or add contrast, whatever we want. We can paint a little bit of lights here on the road as people are moving by and the cars are using their lights. But besides that, it's pretty decent, I would say. We can of course add something easier to just add curves. And let's just pump up a little bit to have the faded effect and lower down everything even further. Highlights are going down here. Let's bump up the middle range here and let's see what we can get. Now this is being really dark, but the question is, what do you like? Why do you like it? And it's all up to you. There is no single correct answer. This is your image, you should be liking this image, and of course if you are doing this for likes on Instagram or Facebook, that's a totally different story. So there you have it. This is how you can do a day to night or evening to night light effect with just a couple of layers, maybe a little bit of paint brushing. It's really not that hard. I encourage you to try at home. Find a special photo. I will link this down into the description so you can download this and play at home for yourself. I will add also a couple of links to Unsplash images that I think should be easier for you to do with a couple of these techniques, pretty much just using filters, eventually a paintbrush here and there, and that's all. Thanks for tuning in, bye for now. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comment sections, and have a nice weekend.